In this video, we are going to build point-to-site VPN connectivity and access the Spoke VM. Before creating the P2S connection once again, let's understand what is that we're going to do. So we already have the S2S connectivity built between Hub VNet and the VNet on-premise. But in this particular demonstration, what is that we're going to do? We only build the P2S connectivity for VNet Hub VPN gateway and then try to access this particular VM from the desktop. Alright, we're not going to do anything with this particular network. We're just going to try to implement the P2S connectivity for this particular network. Okay, let's get on the Azure portal. Go to the virtual network gateways. Let's click on the VNG. And in the VNG, you can see there is a point to site connection configuration, right? So let's click on that and you get an option here called configure now. Let's click on that. And this is where, you have to provide some kind of private IP address range, that can be used by the P2S clients. So in this particular case, we are just going to provide this particular range. The P2S client can get the IP address out of that particular address pool. Tunnel type, what is that we're going to do? Open VPN. There are multiple ways that you can build it, but in our case, we only going to use the Open VPN. Now, authentication type. There are three authentication type: Azure Certificate, Radius Authentication, and Azure Active Directory. In our case, we're just going to use the Azure Active Directory. Now, as soon as you select that option, these are the things that you have to provide. Now, what are these things, right? My suggestion would be click on this link and seek that guidance. Okay. So if we go back again, we got audience and we got a issuer and we got a tenant, right? Three things. And what are those values? Let's try to understand from the guidance that is published here. Tenant are basically in the Azure public. So this is the tenant, right? So what I'm going to do, I am just going to pick up this value in the notepad. All right. So let me go ahead and basically pull the notepad and let's copy that. This is going to be the tenant value, right? The second thing that we need is the audience. Again, for the public cloud, this is the audience. All right, that is a fixed value. So let me type on the other screen that value. And the issuer is something like this, right? So we copy that issuer just like that. Issuer is what I added here. And now what is that we need is a tenant ID, right? So let me take this on the other side. Let's go back. And what is that I'm gonna do? Let's open the other tab. And we go to the Microsoft Entra ID to get the tenant ID. Right, is popping up. Let's go to the Microsoft Entra ID. And this is the tenant ID that we need. Now what we're gonna do, we just replace this tenant ID with that, right? In this particular case as well, we just replace the tenant ID. I think that slash has to be there, so I'm just going to replace like that. Now let me go back again to the VNG here. Now I'm going to copy paste those values. This is the first one. All right, that's the second one. For the audience is always same. And then we got issuer. All right, that's it. We don't want any additional route to advertise in this particular case. And what is that I'm going to do? I'm going to say save. We got a message saying that the configuration is saved. Okay, so let's close this one and refresh once again. Let's go ahead and refresh this one and make sure that we can basically download the client. All right, now we can go ahead and download the client. All right, we got the zip downloaded here, right? So let's open this file, and what is that we get? What we get, so we're going to extract all, and we say extract in the download folder, something like this. All right, so we got a Azure VPN config file, but we didn't get the client. To get the Azure VPN, what is that we're gonna do? We get to the Google and we say that Azure VPN client download. All right, that's the client. We click on that and stay this one, that's fine, and we say download the client. Let's open this particular file. This is the VPN client that we got. What is that we're gonna do? We just going to import the file that we downloaded, right? So we go to the download folder, and this is the file that we can simply import, which has all that information, and we say save. And now what is that we're gonna do? Say connect. This is the user that we want to use for this particular connection, which is basically the enter ID. Accept this particular one, that is fine. Right, what I had to do to make this working, I came here on the enterprise application, I selected the Azure VPN application there, and then there is a permission section, and I say grant admin consent for default directory. I do that, I came here and then connect using the same thing, and now here you can see that I got connected, right? Now on my desktop, if I go ahead and take a look in the IP config, I might have the IP address which is coming from the address pool. You see, I got that 10.40 IP address allocated to my desktop now. All right, so that looks good to me. But if I go ahead and do now the RDP to the machine which is there in the cloud, all right, so this is what I'm going to do now. There is a virtual machine I deployed called Spoke 1 VM, and let's ensure that we see the IP address for this particular machine is this private IP. I did not assign any public this particular machine, so we have to connect. Because we are on the VPN, we should be in a position to connect to this particular machine using the private IP, right? So what is that private IP? Let me grab that 10.20.0.4. Let's hit connect. All right, it's crying, it's not basically getting connected, so we have to solve this issue. And I think the issue could be around the peering, so let's cancel this. And what I feel that let's go to the virtual network. Now this is where that gateway transit and remote gateway will come in picture. So we go on the hub, and there is a peering connection. And on this peering connection, what is that we need to do? We have to allow a gateway transit. So gateway to route server to forward traffic, that's a gateway transit in this particular case, right? And I'm going to save this one. That's a gateway transit I enabled now on this particular peering connection. And let's go back to the virtual network once again. And Spoke 1 is where that VM is, and here we would like to use a hub remote gateway. This is what we have to select in this particular case. So my understanding is that now these two things would let us basically get onto this VM, but let's make sure that this is saved, because it's essential that these routes are reflected and gateway transit is working rightly. That looks good to me. And there you go. Right now, because we got a gateway transit and remote gateway enabled on the peering, we are in a position to get on the VM which is in the spoke network. Right, so I think might be the wrong password that I entered. I think that doesn't look good. Maybe the more choice. Let me use the another account, which is going to be the OS admin in this case, because that is the account created machine. And there you go. Using a P2S connection, now we are on that particular machine. All right, that is how you can establish the P2S connectivity on the same VPN gateway where you have a site-to-site connectivity as well. Right, this is how you can establish the channel from your desktop to the Azure cloud and the spoke network. Again, let me pull out the kind of architecture in this particular case we achieved. This is the architecture that we basically utilize. We connecting here in the VPN gateway, and then by connecting here we basically in a position to access this VM from our desktop. So we build, there is a kind of like we build using Microsoft Entra authentication the P2A channel using OpenVPN to this particular VM. That is how it works. Okay, hope now you got a good understanding about building the P2S connection.